Hi, my name is Rick Adams from practicalcsm.com, and welcome to part two of a three-part podcast discussion series with my friend Remco de Vries, Head of Marketing at Insided. Our conversation is titled The Customer Success Profession in 2021, Remco's Predictions, and part one has already been published. So if you've not viewed or listened to that, I recommend you watch or listen to that one first and then come back to this one afterwards. So now, please sit back and enjoy part two. I think we've talked about meaning and implications here. So let's move to advice. If you have any, if you haven't already covered it, anything around advice for the CSMs and for CS leaders around this sort of breakthrough in customer education and the rise of one-to-many.
Yeah, advice. I don't know. It's similar to my previous advice, I guess. I think there's a clear sort of role for CSMs here to sort of deepen their expertise and do a little bit more with more tooling, different channels than they have been doing so far. But yeah, also driving this change requires a proactive willingness of CSMs to actually look further than just what we've been doing for the past couple of years. I think through channels like even hooking up with your marketing team on the website and figuring out how things are structured there and what information you already make sure that customers have before you even close the deal, to eventually figuring out what FAQs you need on your site and if you need a community or not and what your help desk looks like. I mean, there's all sorts of things that are already in existence but not yet influenced by customer success.
Okay, I'll give two pieces of advice if I may. Number one, collaboration, which you've just mentioned there, but so you mentioned marketing, for example, and I would add product, and I would also add HR/training. So if you're going to provide online self-service training, then you've got to provide the right training for the right need, and we in CS should know the need. Product should help us with what is the right training, and so should training people then, experts in training, be able to create the right training, because there's a lot more to education than just writing down a bunch of facts in a PowerPoint presentation. So I think collaboration is my first point. My second point around the sort of the automation piece is you can't automate, or you can't do a good job on automation if you haven't already pinned down the process. So part of the role I think that customer success can take on here is let's actually document what is best practice. What is it that we do? And then once we've got it written down, we can then work with developers to say, well, which parts of these are ripe for automation? So that's my second piece of advice there. All right, I guess we better move on. Let's look at prediction number 3. Your third prediction is customer success goes and stays remote with a knock-on impact on talent and productivity. So as before, please explain what you think might happen first, and then we'll go on to implications in a moment.
Yeah, so I'm actually excited about this one. It's I think the least interesting one if you just look at the sort of prediction.
Okay.
But I think it's actually the one that will give us probably most changes or interesting changes next year. So basically, I would describe 2020 as being a transition year for customer success now. So the world changed to remote. CSMs had to figure out a way of dealing with that and dealing with that themselves within their own family, but also at work. How do we stay connected to our customers? What is important right now? Which customers are struggling due to COVID? Which customers are thriving? How do we deal with both of those? And I feel like 2021 should be the year where most of that transition work has been done. We sort of have now ironed out a little bit of a process or playbook on how to deal with customers in a remote world. And 2021 will then actually be the year where CSMs sort of come back into their own again and optimize a little and play around a little and make some changes to see better results. Basically optimized beyond the transition that we've now made into a remote world, which could be anything. It could be in process, could be in like the previous prediction, could be into new channels, could be anything. And I'm super excited to see what that year will actually speed up in terms of development of CS teams. And the final part of this, not a new prediction, I think, but obviously for any company building a CSS team, CSS customer success team. CSS is development thing. And this opens up a world of talent, and you can basically focus on your CS process in the right way immediately because you have so much experience just basically available to you from any part in the world right now. And I think that will also speed up result and optimization and just growth in CS teams, because people starting out now will probably start out a lot quicker than they usually did.
Okay, so do you think this is wider than customer success? This is, if you like, a general trend, within what I will call white collar work.
Absolutely.
Not that anyone really wears a white collar that much anymore, because they're all at home. But yeah, so you see this as being sort of business as usual for lots of verticals, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I even experienced this myself. I mean, I was hiring for marketing roles in the B2B space, and I had two requirements: one, English native; two, need to have some experience, which varied per role in B2B and preferably B2B SaaS. And trying to get that where I'm located in the Netherlands is it's an awful daunting task. There's in B2C, there's a lot. In B2B, there's so little talent available right now, and having the ability to go remote right now has just expanded my horizon immensely.
Very interesting. Amazing. So implication wise, which we're talking about really now, I guess, and you've already mentioned some of the implications here around recruiting, hiring new team members. So, whereas before, obviously, had to be within a commuting distance of Office X, that's no longer a requirement. And so at the very least, it's open to anyone in the country. And actually, if you're, for example, in the Eurozone, anyone in the European Union pretty much certainly is going to be fine. If you're in the US, obviously anyone in the States, maybe for some roles, anyone anywhere. It doesn't matter whether you're in Saudi Arabia or Poland or wherever you happen to be, India or wherever you are. So that does open up the talent pool, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, any other thoughts on implications, or do you want to just go to advice on this one?
Yeah, so what do you think of transition versus optimization in 2021?
Transition in terms of, say again?
Yeah, it's 2020 being the transition year and 2021 being the year where most sort of basic level transitioning is done, and we're now going to optimize the new normal, basically.
I see what you mean. I think that makes a lot of sense. I think that up to perhaps this date, I mean, where are we now? 16th of December, we're recording this. Okay. Up to this date, I would say that organizations have had to take initially a pragmatic wait and see, we don't know what's going to happen position, because that's been the case, right? We just haven't had enough information to know. Now, I believe we still don't have much information. Frankly, anything could happen in 2021. But I think that one of the things that we can tick off the list that won't happen is things will go back to normal really quickly.
No.
So I think that's how I see it. I would say that whereas before we were in a move to an emergency temporary state, and then see whether we need to go back or whether we need to go forwards or stay where we are. I think we need to take off the list the go back. And I think that leaves you with stay as you are right now, or do more, do something else. So I think both of those are potentially on the table. And I think it's going to be very interesting. I mean, what about all those out of town huge office parks? The likes of companies like Microsoft and Cisco and SAP and so on had thousands of employees at. What's going to be the difference there? Are those people going to be part-time at the office? Again, you look at the, I mean, not that I've done an intense study of this, but just glancing at some of the studies that have been done around people's personal preferences, it would appear actually that there are a reasonable percentage of people who may not want to go back entirely, but do actually miss aspects of working as a team in an office.
Yeah, absolutely. I sure as hell do. So
You do? Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But it's
And
also, yeah,
I think, yeah, I don't think that's unusual. And I think, I mean,
no,
like, I mean, I'm, you know, I'm in my 50s now. I really like being at home because it's comfortable. You know, typical
yeah,
50 odd year old, right?
yeah,
But you know, in my 20s and 30s, my work was also my socializing. You
yeah,
know, we went out and did stuff in the evenings.
exactly.
You know, sometimes
Yeah,
didn't even go home. Yeah. So
yeah,
yeah, I mean that's how how you find your friends, and how you even, you know, maybe find your permanent partner and so on. So I think there's so much that is not even just work related, that is tied up to the
sure.
culture of working with others, you know, as a community. I think is, you know, we don't want to throw that out. So I think
Yeah,
that's quite interesting. So I think it'd be interesting to see what happens, and how that, like, non-business aspect of what is a business decision around where and how we work, you know, how that will be handled, I think will be quite interesting.
yeah, yeah. That's exactly right. Yeah.
Okay, anything else on prediction number 3? Anything on the advice side of things?
No, let's yeah, well, I know or at least I have one solution in mind, but that's also part of the next prediction. So
Oh, okay. Well,
let's
let's go on. So, onwards and upwards. We're at prediction number 4. Your fourth prediction is: while balancing digital and human touchpoints, personalization will remain the key to success. So, this would appear at a first glance to be a bit of a dichotomy,
yes.
right? While doing this, you're doing that. So, so tell me about prediction 4 and what exactly you had in mind here, Remco. And by all means, bring in what you were just discussing there around how that might be part of the answer to what we were talking about with your third prediction as well.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, to start off, personalization is a no-brainer, right? I mean, if you're having a conversation with a customer and you know everything about them and what their goals are and what makes them successful, and maybe what their daughter's name is, and if they like dogs or not, I mean, it's gonna make for at least a more fun conversation, but it's probably also going to help you actually achieve business results for those customers, and do that in a way that also suits them, and help, and then they can sort of help out the most also with that process in using your product. So not debating that at all. I do feel like with this new sort of remote world, and also with customer success moving a bit away from only doing QBRs and seeing each other face to face and flying over to a customer, to also doing that remote, and maybe doing that more often and more frequent, or changing the format altogether. I feel like there's going to be a balance between how you personalize your communication when you're actually looking at the customer and talking to someone like I'm talking to you right now, and how you do that when you're actually just sending them an email or informing them of a new feature, or explaining to them that their feature request is not going to happen because product doesn't have time, or doing something else. And that balance, and how you then also stay personalized and stay focused on exactly what matters to that customer, and don't fall in the trap of sending everyone the same email with the same exact communication, the same exact result about a feature that they might not even care about. I feel is going to be the key to success now.
That's really interesting. So I think some of this might be quite complex to deal with. And again, I'm quite interested in the emotional side of this, as well as the logical and practical. I think, yeah, the two are inescapable. They're intertwined.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, I'm seeing a lot of people like expressing the feeling, some of them quite forcefully, that they are utterly sick to death of Zoom meetings. Sorry,
Yeah.
Zoom, don't mean to pick on you. We're using Zoom right now, and I love Zoom, don't get me wrong. But, you know, whatever the tool is, you know, of remote meetings, they're just, you know, they've had so many in the last 8-9 months that they've just, you know, they've been completely almost like tsunami waved with
Yeah.
with them, and they got to the stage where I think, and what's interesting to me is what's going to happen over the holiday period is you're going to want, you know, you can't have all your aunts and uncles over, so what are you going to do? You're going to go on Zoom.
Yeah.
So you can't, it's one of those, like, you can't get away from it now. whether it's work or personal, there it is. It's, it's another meeting, and it's scheduled in your diary. And you didn't used to have to schedule your meetings with your aunts and uncles in your diary,
No.
and now suddenly you do. And I'm just wondering, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so at least on the sort of personal emotional part, I think what we're doing and what we need to also avoid is to have a Zoom meeting for everything, because basically I sometimes also have 10-minute Zoom meetings in my diary for someone just to explain something, or explains and send me a message through Zoom that could easily have just been an email or an FYI or something else. We're basically overloading ourselves with Zoom meetings, which is explainable, I guess, from the human psyche, because to us, Zoom right now is the closest thing that we have to actually picking up the phone and calling an office.
Or to any kind of human contact, maybe.
Or to any kind of human contact, exactly. So I think in our brains, the most logical thing to do is or at least to think of as a solution when you have something or a message to relay to someone, is I'll just schedule a Zoom, because at least I'll be able to see someone and see how they respond. That makes me feel better as well. So then we go there. And I think that's the problem that we're having and forcing upon ourselves right now, is we're scheduling Zoom meetings for everything, and we need to be way more critical on what we actually do through Zoom and how many meetings we actually schedule with people through Zoom, right, versus just email communication, FYIs, or different types of communication. Because we're wearing ourselves out. We're basically burning out on Zoom.
So there we go. So that's really interesting. So maybe we're going to see, some, some new models for how we use these tools that weren't necessarily relevant in the old world, where we weren't using them quite so intensively, but now perhaps we need to use them in a different way. Okay. Yeah. Do you have any advice? Anything you want to say else about prediction?
Yeah, maybe one final note to the previous yes, point. What I'm actually hoping that happens is, for example, that this also leads, talking about it, for example, productivity perspective. So that this also leads to people actually just doing things more often instead of checking first. So maybe on the lowest level of productivity in businesses, instead of scheduling calls and asking for permission to do literally everything, just take some ownership or accountability and just do stuff, and not schedule the meeting or schedule the conversation or something else. And then if you have interesting results or messed up majorly, we can talk about it later.
That's really interesting. So could this also be a rise in playbooks and process?
I would hope so. Yeah. That would be awesome.
Which then, basically follow the playbook, and then the playbook tells you what you have permission to do off your own initiative, and when you need to stop and refer back.
There should at least be clear boundaries, and within those boundaries,
that's what I'm thinking. Decisions. Yeah, I like it. Yeah, nice. I like it. Okay, well, we're over halfway. It's been a very interesting journey so far. Let's go to prediction number 5. Your 5th prediction is CS tooling will move beyond the traditional CS and CRM, for example, Gainsight, and will be purpose-built for CS teams.
Yes.
So, okay. This sounds quite controversial here. So it also reminds me very much of a conversation I've been having with another customer success professional whom you might know. Do you know Jake Soroferman from Meta CX?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So you're probably aware that he's saying something similar, and I'm not going to steal his thunder, but I'm inviting him onto the show as well to discuss his ideas around kind of generation 2 customer success software in the near future. So if that interests you, if you're listening to this, please do look out for that. Make sure you're registered at practicalcsm.com and keep up to date with our podcast releases. But back to this conversation, Remco. So please tell me more about customer success tooling and how you believe it will change.
Yeah, so I love this one. This one's amazing. So basically, to start out, customer success teams have been underserved by technology or technology vendors or software or whatever you want to call it. And to be honest, CS teams should be kind of offended by that a little. So you have the traditional CS CRM, which is Gainsight or Planet or Zero. all great tools and super useful for a CSM. So I'm not going to say anything of those going out of business or no longer being relevant, because they'll definitely be also in the future. But the rest of the tech stack is just stuff that's either purpose built for a marketing team and now adopted by CS to use, or purpose built for a product team and now adopted by CS to use in an onboarding perspective, or at least nothing in the CS tech stack right now. If you go on G2, for example, and look at the grid for customer success, literally, yeah, I don't know, 95%, let's give it a number, 95% or something of all tools that are in the customer success grid there actually have not been purpose built with a customer success team in mind, even though they're now used for customer success. And this in the beginning is fine, I guess, because there at least is tooling to achieve certain goals. So that is amazing. But I do feel like it could be way better, way more optimal, way more focused on a customer success way of working, or how a CSM actually goes about his day, and supporting that if a tool would be built from the ground up just with a customer success team or a customer success manager in mind. So that's the first part. And the second part is that if you look at tooling right now, it's usually, if it's used for a customer success perspective, it's usually only from the CSM's perspective. So basically a CSM can log in to some tool somewhere, can do some stuff, or figure out a health score, or figure out what they need to do next for a customer, which customer to focus on. But nothing like that exists for a customer. So there's no real tool for a customer to actually log into and then find all of the customer success content they might need, all of the onboarding or training content they might need, other customers in similar situations or industries that they could talk to actually figure out how they solved a certain problem with your software, or any of that. That doesn't exist either. So I feel like there's a massive gap in sort of the customer success tech stack that is yet to be filled. And I'm really, really hoping that 2021 will be the year where we actually move beyond what we already have right now and start seeing more of those tools emerge.
Well, that's very interesting. I think, with any emerging profession, like the customer success profession is still, still immature, it still is emerging, has not yet really, matured. I think inevitably we're going to see the Wild West, where there are perhaps lots of small software companies, startups, complete startups, like bedroom startups. Okay, that's it for part 2. Please subscribe at practicalcsm.com/member to be updated when part 3 gets released, or alternatively, subscribe on the YouTube channel. And if you hit the bell icon, you'll get notified whenever a new video is published. See you soon for part 3.